Excellent. Good evening and welcome to the June 15th, 2023 regular session of the Milford School Committee meeting. This meeting is being broadcast by Milford TV and copies can be obtained at the request of this board or through central office. So good evening, everyone. Our first agenda item is the approval of minutes. First set of minutes to be looked over and approved is the regular session minutes held on June 1st, 2023. Any comments or discussions? Not seeing any, so looking for a motion to accept the regular session meeting minutes from June 1st. Motion by Megan, second by Robin, all in favor, and that is unanimous. Second set of minutes are the executive session minutes held on June 1st, 2023. Any comments, discussions, clarifications?
I don't have them up yet. Was it the one?
June 1st, so
the last meeting.
AFSCME and there's one other thing on there.
Contracts.
Contracts. Yeah, AFSCME and contracts. You were not here.
No, I didn't think it was.
You were not here. Yeah. All right.
So
So
we should probably hold that one.
that one we're gonna hold
Yeah.
then. Yep. All right. So we'll table that to their next meeting. All right. Very well.
I don't think we technically have enough for the minutes.
We didn't have enough for the minutes either, yeah.
Sorry. That's
Pardon?
the same evening, so I don't know that we have enough
Oh,
for the regular
sorry.
minutes. I'm sorry.
Mike, were you not here at that meeting at all,
No.
or you just left? Okay, then
Sorry.
we'll go back to
Mhm.
both. So.
All right, so I'll just change that.
Yep.
And I apologize, I just noticed the invitation to speak, the speaker's name is actually spelled incorrectly in the minutes, so
Okay.
we just might wanna look at that too.
All right, not a problem. Very well. Thanks for noticing that. All right, we will come back to that. You have that.
Yep,
Okay.
I've got it.
All right. Very well. All right. Then second agenda item will be announcements, correspondence, and distribution. Any committee members have any announcements, correspondence, distributions? Not seeing any. Dr. McIntyre?
All right, I've got two quick announcements. Just a reminder that lunch will be served throughout the summer for children ages 1 to 18 years old at Memorial Elementary School from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. The first day of the program is June 26th, and the program ends on August 18th. There will be fun activities and special guests throughout the summer. Lunch is free and there is no registration or paperwork required. This has been a long-standing program that's been very successful for the Milford Public Schools and the greater Milford community. The second announcement is our last day of school is Wednesday, June 21st, and that's a half day, and a reminder that there is no school on June 19th in observance of the Juneteenth holiday. And that's all I have.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So moving on to our next agenda item, which will be invitation to speak. Anybody here, invitation to speak, not pertaining to our current agenda? Not seeing anybody. Excellent. Moving on from that will be, next agenda item is the Director of Nursing appointment.
Great.
Come on up and yes. Kevin will do some introductions. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, so I'm pleased to recommend Rebecca Padula for the appointment as the new Shining Star Early Childhood Center nurse and the Director of Nursing for the Milford Public Schools. Rebecca has served as a nurse in the Uxbridge Public Schools since 2012 and as the lead nurse in Uxbridge since 2017. Prior to her experiences in Uxbridge, she worked for another public school district and for Milford Regional Medical Center. She earned her degree in nursing from Worcester State University and was, I gotta say, we hire a lot of folks in the Milford Public Schools, and the enthusiasm and excitement from her references was as good or better than any I've ever seen. They just couldn't say enough good things about you. So that's a good thing. So I'd love to have Rebecca introduce herself and then maybe open it up for questions, and this does require a vote.
Yes, great. Thank you.
So hi, I'm Rebecca Padula. I go by Becky mostly, but whatever works. I'm very excited for this opportunity. I worked through COVID and everything with Uxbridge, worked closely with the superintendent and staff. So you basically said my background, so if you have any questions, though, I'm happy to answer anything. And I'm very excited too that I get to still see students and do the director part, so.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. Open it up to the committee with any comments, questions for our candidate for Director of Nursing. Michael?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Not yet. We got to vote.
Yeah.
No. Excellent. Robin?
So, assuming the vote goes in your favor tonight,
During your first year coming from Uxbridge to Milford, what do you see as maybe just the type of support you would need from the district to be successful?
So I guess basically it would be, diversity is gonna be huge here,
Mhm.
obviously. So I definitely am gonna, you know, kind of reach out to everyone to kind of help me get through, you know, dealing with the different language barriers, for instance. But I know you have the
Family Resource Center.
Thank you. Which is huge.
You'll be
so-
rolling those off within a year,
Yeah.
like nobody's business.
So I'm really excited for that too, because that'll be huge. So basically just, you know, I'll definitely be, you know, asking lots of questions, I'm sure. So, but like I said, I've been the lead in Uxbridge for the past several years, so as far as like policies and procedures and all that go, I pretty much have that down, you know, but I'll be learning new ones with all of you, so.
And Lee Wingord has graciously offered to provide support through the
Yes.
transition as well. And then they've talked a couple times already too, which has been great.
Mhm.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you, Robin. Megan, please.
Welcome, Becky. It's great to meet you. Thanks for coming out. I'm curious, do you know if we use the same system that you use in Uxbridge?
For the
Platform for
medical, no, you have SNAP, which
Mhm.
we have been trying to get.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, yeah, that one is much more user-friendly for nursing,
Excellent.
so
And
I'm
then
excited to use it.
that's great. I'd love to hear from your perspective how the interview process went.
It was great, actually. I met with the SEL director and 2 of the nurses in the elementary level. They asked great questions, basically about, you know, coming on from a different district. You know, am I going to come in and be like, hey, let's do this, you know? But I'm actually excited to see how everything's done here, and then work with everyone, you know, as a team,
That's great.
definitely.
Excellent. Well, I hope your first few years here aren't nearly as challenging as the last few. So,
Right.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rex.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So, looking then for a motion to accept Rebecca Padula as the Shining Star school nurse and our director of nursing. So, motion by Robin, second by Megan, then all in favor, and that is unanimous. So, congratulations and welcome to the Milford Public Schools.
Thank you very much. I'm excited.
Welcome.
Thanks.
All right, excellent. Next agenda item is a discussion on naming the administrative wing at Stacy Middle School. I've asked Town Council Brian Murray to be here, kind of just to go over a little bit of the, you know, there is no policy, there is no procedure. So I reached out to Brian. We had a good discussion about that. So I wanted to bring Brian up first. He can talk a little bit in that realm. We can ask him questions about the, you know, steps moving forward. And then also there's some gentlemen here in support of Mike Britta that will speak next. So Mr. Murray.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me here this evening. The Milford School Committee really has a long-standing tradition of recognizing very special individuals who have contributed to the Milford educational system over the years. When I was here in high school back in the 70s, the David I. Davern Auditorium was named that for I don't know how long before that. As I walked down the hallway, I came by my uncle's naming of the science wing. When you look at Stacy School, it's a very unique building. It's actually the conglomeration of 4 separate buildings built from 1901 till 1995. And the John C. Lynch Auditorium, it was named back when it was the old high school. That name stayed and has gone to the new auditorium, which is in the original Stacy building on Spruce Street. In addition to that, you have the Paul F. Raftery Academic Wing, and that was a culmination of the project that we did in 1995 that brought Stacy School to where it is right now. Ed Bertarelli at that time was on the committee with me, and he was very influential in bringing Mr. Raftery's name forward. He had served in 45 years in the school system and really was the principal of that building for so many years and made such an imprint on so many people. When Tom Cullen retired in 1996, we named the gymnasium the Thomas J. Cullen gymnasium at Stacy School. That school, quite frankly, wouldn't be there in its form right now if it was not for Tom Cullen. He spearheaded that project as superintendent. It was a $12 million project. We started it in the early 1990s, and it was a project that was done, and this is something that you folks have never experienced. It was a project that was done in 3 years of negative free cash. Okay, so think about that. You understand how tough financing is. Milford has been very rich in financing. We've never really had money problems. We've never had to have an override. Tom guided that through with 3 years of negative free cash in the town of Milford. So when he retired, we thought it was a very, very fitting tribute to him to name the gymnasium after him. The school itself, George E. Stacy, many people might not realize, he served 50 years on the Milford School Committee. Who wants to stay here 50 years? I mean, just a tremendously...
I don't think they give you that much for murder anymore.
Yeah. You know, I mean, he was alive during the late 1880s, the early 1900s, and when you read about George E. Stacy, he was kind of the main community member that really stressed education throughout the town of Milford. And the community members felt so strongly about his recognition that they named the school after him. And that was a discussion that we had when we did that project. Because as some of you may know, at one point it was Middle School West, which, you know, the only worse name than that would be Middle School East. And we had that, probably the same discussion that you might be thinking about now. And we had to point out that, you know, George Stacy was a key contributor to education in the town of Milford, and it really needed to stay with that name, and we did. And again, that's how we also, I thought to recognize Paul Raftery. You know, you talk about a policy. There's never been a written policy. I was 12 years on the school committee. There was never any kind of policy to identify what you would name after whom. And to be honest with you, as someone who has written all kinds of policies, regulations, whatever, I don't know what that policy would look like. When you look at the very different contributions that the individuals that I mentioned, it would be very difficult to come up with a policy. My thought is that it would be so generic, so general, that it would be, quite frankly, useless. So, from my perspective, I think the policy rests with all of you. You right now are the trustees of the Milford school system. It's your responsibility to really recognize the tradition and history that we've had here and to carry that tradition and history onward. When I think about Mike Britta, I was fortunate enough to serve 12 years on the school committee. He was principal during that time, but I knew him before that because he was the assistant principal when I was a 7th grader at Stacy School at that time. If Tom Cullen was the head coach that brought home Stacy School, Mike Britta was the quarterback. So during that construction process, and it was a phase, let's see, the project started, I don't know, 91, 92. We did the dedication 93. So you're talking about 2 to 3 plus years. And as you can see, it was a phased construction. We probably had at that time, I want to say, close to 1,000, maybe 1,200 kids. They had to be relocated. So we came up with a great idea. We called it Project Excel. And we had 5 locations across the town where different pockets of students were at. Mike oversaw all of those. If you think it's difficult to be a principal in one building, think about trying to be a principal in 5 buildings, temporary buildings. One was the Armory, one was the convent, the convent building at St. Mary's. I'm trying to think where the other 3 locations were. It was a very, very stressful time period. Mike did a tremendous job in keeping everything together, keeping the staff fully motivated. The students' learning continued, and then we transitioned back to Stacy School as you all know it now. Through it all, I don't know anyone who was more professional, more kind, more generous, more caring of other people than Mike Britta. So from my perspective, it's a no-brainer. When I look at Stacy School, when I look at a lot of schools, I think of a lot of different folks that are affiliated with it. But most certainly Stacy School, when I look at it, it's synonymous with Mike Britta. And I think it would be a very, very appropriate recognition and honor to do that. It's certainly within your authority to do that. The chairman asked me, how did you think about these things, or, how did you evaluate them? And I think it was incumbent upon us and you to really get a sense of the history, of the tradition, of the contribution of the individual, how specific it was, and then vote with your gut. That's what you got elected to do. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's my perspective on this vote that you're facing.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Open it up to questions. We have no questions or concerns? Well, that's good.
I have
Let me-
one question.
oh, go ahead.
Did you have to go back and look up any of those years, Brian, or did you know those all off the top
What
of your
year?
head? Every year that you just listed. For
Oh,
all the
yeah, I
good
could
things.
tell you. I
That's
could tell you
quite
the years that
impressive.
school was built.
Very
1901,
impressive.
1917, 1933, 1995.
Very
Oh, I
impressive.
can go on.
We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Excellent.
I-
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Are we voting on something tonight, or are we just listening to?
We have every ability to vote if we want to
Okay.
tonight. Yep,
Just curious.
we have that. So if we want to make the motion tonight, certainly we have that in our purview.
And
So.
what is the committee looking for to maybe
So
wing
the-
after, or?
Yeah, so I brought Brian,
Suggestions?
so I brought Brian in, obviously, kind of talk more from the formality aspect of it.
Sure.
Obviously, he also has some connections with the history behind Mr. Britta. There's also some supporters behind him that will come up to speak. So I think that you'll hear more about Mike Britta and what he had to offer, or what he did offer to our community, and that might help answer some of those questions.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that personally.
Yeah, excellent, good. Any other questions? I guess anything from the policy procedure wise. I think that we heard a very, very concise way of how we can go about this. So we appreciate that.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome to stay up as the other
I'll be here
individuals
if
come
you
up.
have any
but
other questions, feel free.
Excellent. Thank you,
Sure.
appreciate that.
Kevin, how many wings are in Stacy?
So,
Maybe Kari Dowd or Rachel can answer that question. How many wings are in
How
Stacy?
many wings are in Stacy?
Rooms?
Wings.
wings.
That's an odd question.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the two, guidance and administration, and that's it, the rest of all.
There's, the rest are hallways, so there's the academic hallways that exist. And then there's sort of the wing that houses the auditorium that's already dedicated and the gymnasium that's already dedicated.
Sounds good. The gentleman that would like to speak on Mr. Britta's half, please come on up, introduce yourself. If you'd want to introduce the gentleman behind you
Yep.
too, I think it just shows a great show of support for this individual.
Yeah, I'm Nick Sakili. I'm a former teacher, coach, and athletic director here in Milford. Behind me, members of the Joe Stoico Athletic Hall of Fame scholarship group that we put together 7 years ago. Alan Alves is our president, and Frank Tiuli is our treasurer, and the rest are all members. And going with that, as far as wings, the academic wing at Stacy, as Brian said, was dedicated to Paul Raftery when the school was rededicated in 1995. And I'm glad Brian said all that, because I had that in my presentation too, so I don't have to repeat any of that. So I started my career, well, first of all, let me tell you about our committee and why we put this out here. We started this group in 2016 by first roasting and raising money in the name of Coach Joe Stoico, who has since passed. And basically it was to honor Hall of Fame coaches. And I am chairman also of the Hall of Fame committee. We have a presentation coming up in November where we'll be inducting our, 20th class, I believe it is. But anyway, as a means of fundraising to give out scholarships for needy or for deserving kids that graduate from Milford High School. So we started this in 2016. The last 2 years, we've given out over $13,000 each year 13 $1,000 scholarships to Milford High School students. So this year, one of our Hall of Fame coaches is Mike Britta. Mike was one of the first people who was inducted to the Hall of Fame, probably back in the early 2000s. He was like in our second or third class of inductees as an athlete here at Milford. So we were going to be honoring him this year. We are honoring him this year, next Wednesday, with a banquet, and again, in his name. We presented the first Michael Britta Scholarship this year. And the type of person that Mike is, you know, it sounds like it's an athletic thing, but Mike, when we asked him, who do you want this scholarship to be presented to? He said, I want it to be presented to someone from the arts, theater, music, or performing arts. That's the type of guy he always was. I started my career, as I said, in 1973. He was the assistant principal at that time at Middle School West, and that's when I first started teaching. And he later became my principal, and obviously a very good friend over the years, and working with him in administration as the athletic director. He was always very supportive of the kids. I think that's really what stands out about Michael. He was always, has always been kids first. And sometimes that rubbed teachers the wrong way, I have to be honest with you, because there were a few teachers that didn't always agree with him, but he always put kids up front. And he is the nicest guy you can ever meet. Again, we decided as part of honoring him, we thought that it might be a nice gesture to name the administrative wing, so to speak, which is basically the original 1930, 1901 part of the high school that was rebuilt in 1933, right, Brian? After the fire. Yeah. So that administrative wing, as you walk in that door on School Street, right to the left, we thought that would be an appropriate way to honor him in addition to the banquet that we'll be having next Wednesday. So that's basically where this proposal came from.
Excellent. Great. Well, thank you very much, Nick. We appreciate all those kind words. Any questions from the committee members in regards to Mike Britta, or any things that he may have done, or
I think probably
that knew
most
him?
of the committee, including the ones that are not here, probably had Mike as either a principal or as assistant principal down at the Middle School West Stacy School at one point.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you. We appreciate you coming in, showing your support towards that. I guess quickly what I'll do is I'll read the letter that I received, and just the quick part of it was, in consideration of this proposal, please allow us to share the positive impact that Mr. Britta has had on the educational community of Milford, and specifically at Stacy Middle School. Mr. Britta was the principal of Stacy Middle School for 25 years, having served in this capacity from 1976 to 2001. He held an assistant principal position for 6 years, and prior to leading the middle school, Mr. Britta was a baseball coach for the Milford High School boys varsity team. He taught for 5 years as well, and his 36 years of service to the Milford Public Schools left a legacy of honesty, leadership, and character. So, and obviously Mr. Britta, he's kind of in some failing health right now, which puts a little bit more emphasis on this, I know, from this committee, or from your committee, but I appreciate everybody here in support of this individual.
Thank you.
Anybody in the back that would like to offer any quick words to our committee, feel free. This is the time. You know, you're here, so I feel like I want to give you guys a voice.
Chairman of the school committee, my name is Artie Siepler. I'm a former educator in Milford High School, and I used to sit right there with you guys. I served on the school committee as well, along with Brian. I want to thank Brian for the history lesson. I learned something from him too myself. There's really not much to say about Mike Britta except that he was an absolute 10 of a guy. No matter what he did, he always did it with class. He loved his kids. He loved, I mean, you can't believe the following that he has amongst us, our group right here. And I just can't say that, I believe wholeheartedly that if this board approves that, it's a feather in your cap, and the people of Milford will never forget it. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Please.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Frank Tiuli. I'm a lifelong resident of Milford. I went to school with Mike. I graduated from Milford High in 1961. Mike graduated in 1960. We played sports together, obviously, same football, baseball, all of that. I can't add anything to what everybody said about Mike. The only thing I want you to consider is Mike, as we speak, is fighting for his life. And we all love him. And we want to be able to go to tell him that you voted for this. And that would be something, a great going away present for Michael. Just keep that in mind if while you're voting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Rachel, please, come on up.
Sure. So they're all very familiar with Mike. Hello, everybody. I just can offer a different perspective. I was actually hired by Mike. That year, he took a chance on a few of us. There's myself, who now I serve as the associate principal at Stacy. There was Vicki Houston, who is now the principal of Brookside. And there's Dr. Consigli, who is now the assistant superintendent. He had a lot of us, and he had a way of developing his strengths. He was a tremendous mentor, and he really did, he paved the way for a lot of us, to choose leadership, because there's only two places you go in education, to leadership or the classroom. And I would just like to offer, if I can answer any questions about that side of it, because they will cover the personal side. If I can offer any professional insight, I'm happy to.
Any questions?
And what they're saying is all true about him.
Right. No, and I appreciate you coming out. It's a different perspective, right? It's his supporters, but also people that worked for him, and you were that person, and you were that person, like you said, that he took a chance on as someone new to our school system, and has obviously he made an impact, and good from the staying power that you've been here in our district for a few years. So thank you again. Appreciate you being here for support. Excellent. I guess quickly too, you saw the letter that I have. I also sent out to the committee members other pictures of dedication around Stacy Middle School. I hope everybody was able to see that. So certainly this isn't something new around Stacy Middle School. And the gentleman that I had come in was to show that support of why we should go that route. I know Brendan, John, and Matt all reached out to me. It did say, obviously, they're not here to vote, but they did also acknowledge their support for this too, which is, again, something I'm glad that they were able to reach out to me and say that. So, with that, I would open up any other discussions. If not, entertain a motion to basically go through and name the administrative wing, the Michael J. Britta Administrative Wing at Stacy Middle School. So, motion by Robin, second by Megan, and then all in favor, and that is unanimous. So, gentlemen.
Can I just say I think it really resonated with me, Brian, sort of your comment around sort of the tradition of honoring people, and I think it's so incredibly special to me, Rachel, that you would happen to be here this evening on the eve of discussing this, to think about someone who's been so impactful on our community. I think one of the things about Milford that's always stood out to me is the community, and it's all about the people. So appreciate you all being here tonight, and I look forward to you sharing that news with him.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, again, thank you very much. Megan, thank you very much for those kind words. Perfect. Have a good night, gentlemen. Brian, thanks again. Appreciate it. All right, then. Moving on, our presentation of handbook in school improvement plans. We'll start off with Stacy Middle School. Come on up and join us.
Thank you.
And you want to start off with the handbook? It's usually a little bit simpler to start with that.
Yeah,
They both require a vote for acceptance, so usually the handbook's a little simpler to go through at the beginning.
Yeah,
And thank you for
absolutely.
the corrections page.
So good evening, everyone. So most of the changes are minor and just reflective of the day-to-day practice. I do want to share a quick correction where the report cards where it says that it will be deleted because it does not apply anymore. That part is incorrect. That section will not be deleted. Parents are still to sign the bottom portion of the report cards and send it back to school. So I just want to note that piece. But a lot of the sections that either have been removed or not is because they're either not applicable anymore or the language has changed. One substantial change is the potential for a Saturday school. Our goal of Saturday school is to avoid using suspensions into other remedies and or consequences have been employed. Saturday school provide us an opportunity to work with students either in smaller groups or individually to support them and support their social emotional needs. We specifically like to focus on our students who have been showing signs of substance use behavior. In this school year alone, we had over 30 cases of students violating the school's substance use policy, whether it meant on school grounds or during school events, or reporting to school intoxicated. We have attempted to connect students with our community impact diversion program to support that need. However, we have found it unsuccessful for different reasons. One of them is their own attendance and also the language piece of it. There is a program that we would like to, as the administration, including Mrs. Kincaid, we would like to be trained in. It's called I Decide, which is Drug Education Curriculum, Intervention, Diversion, and Empowerment. It consists of 4 core modules that will educate students on the addiction, effects of it, prevention, and healthy alternatives. The curriculum itself is available in Spanish and Portuguese, in English and Spanish. And then Mrs. Kincaid will be more than happy to provide that content in Portuguese. And our goal is really to try to support the needs of our students that are exhibiting substance use behavior. Are there any specific questions regarding the handbook?
I just had a couple of quick questions. So
Yeah.
just, I apologize, I'm just going back to the page where you list them out for us so I can make sure I highlight the right ones. I saw highlighted in here, so I just wanted to have a little more information if you don't mind. Just there were a couple changes to the health, like I noticed a lot of that was highlighted in regards to the health curriculum. So are those just from like state standards, or I was just curious about the changes for that?
They are. So the names are very similar. The content is very similar. The names have changed to kind of reflect what the national and state standards have recently been changed to.
Okay. And then my only other question was just, this is not necessarily handbook, but just for the Saturday school, how do you staff that? What does that look like?
Us.
Okay.
It'd
yeah.
be the administration, including Mrs. Kincaid.
Yeah, okay. All right.
We
Thank
have
you.
had counselors say that they would be more than happy.
Yeah.
This is important work.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions in regards to the handbook and the current changes? Not seeing any. So looking for a motion to accept the Stacy Middle School 2023-2024 Parent Guardian Student Handbook. Motion by Megan. Second by Michael. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Excellent. Very good. Then we'll move on to the school improvement plan.
Absolutely.
And then just for the school improvement plan starts on page 74 in our packet, for those that need to jump ahead.
Great. So last school year, we created goals to reflect the next 3 school years. In this school year, we've added, or for the upcoming school year, we've added an additional 3 goals to reflect new initiatives for our upcoming school year. So I'll quickly provide the 3 that we worked on this year. Our first goal was focused on our school culture, where last year I had reported there were 1,733 discipline referrals, of which 286 resulted in suspensions. There was a slight increase to 1,740, of which 200 resulted in suspensions. However, if we eliminate the 30 referrals due to substance abuse, then that number decreased a little bit to 1710. Close to 1,000 referrals were quoted as classroom incidents, which led to our goal of school culture. This year, close to 950 of those referrals were quoted as classroom incidents or nonviolent. So some of the work that we did this school year was establishing a Stacy Climate Committee culture committee, and the committee really focused on developing common language around behavioral expectations. We rolled out our Stacy Code, which followed a very similar code to what other schools or elementary schools have in place, which is be safe, be responsible, be respectful. Students were, the first few weeks of school, taught very explicitly what it was going to look like. So it modeled a PBIS, but not necessarily a full rollout PBIS programming. We implemented a monthly SEL block that was specific to different SEL topics. We had assemblies to support the climate and culture. So after every break, students would come back, meet in their cluster teams with an administrator and their counselor and review kind of what the expectations were. We did find, based on our MCIA SQM data, that there was a significant growth in students feeling safe at school, a greater sense of belonging, and the student-teacher relationship, which had been rated at needing growth, actually met the approval line based on our SQM data. Our year 2 goals for that specific, or steps for that specific goal, would include looking at a peer mediation program, looking at restorative justice training to look at tier 1 practices of how to have, now that we have the SEL block, how to have more of those conversations to support students and behaviors, and designing and organizing a club and activity fair for students in order to increase participation. Additionally, we're looking at creating a 6th grade positive climate initiative, where we would like to kind of start something where students so that we can reopen the school store and look at how we can combine that to align with some positive behaviors. That's goal 1. Goal 2 was our co-teaching goal. Part of that had been to professional development. So all teachers and our instructional coach participated in 3 different professional development opportunities through the Bureau of Education and Research and through our instructional coach. What we noticed was that school engagement, based on our SQM data, school engagement in school also did significantly grow. Our year 2 plans or steps for that are to continue using professional development and adding coaching to support any in the moment in classrooms, coaching that may be necessary, and also utilize some of the MCIA protocols, which will include creating tasks that are lessons that are engaging for students and performance-based. Our 3rd goal focused on culturally responsive curriculum in alignment with our district's focus of implementing culturally responsive teaching in all schools. We, as an administrative team, also participated in training using the book Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain by Zaretta Hammond. My CTL team, my instructional coach, and I did begin analyzing texts, looking at lessons to identify bias and create culturally responsive project-based lessons and tasks. Our year 2 steps and goal is to continue reviewing it, but roll it out to the school community. So involving all of our teachers, and of course we'll continue participating in the district's focus of culturally responsive teaching. Do you want me to stop here and then start with my new goals, or go right into the new goals?
We'll pause then and if anybody has any questions on the first 2.
3.
Or 3, sorry.
It's okay.
And for people at home,
Yeah.
CTL is curriculum team leader.
Thank you. Yes.
Go ahead, Ron.
So going back to goal 2, the co-teaching one. So one of the things and I apologize if I'm getting any of this wrong, but I believe I remember from the budget meeting when we were talking about adding in the math specialist or interventionist to Stacy. I forget exactly what the title is, but individuals who are trained in math. Part of our discussion was that there would be co-teaching happening in what were traditionally the pull-out special education classes. So students that were having a special ed teacher. Is that going to happen next year? Is that part of what this goal will look at?
Absolutely, yes. So the math specialist will co-teach with a special education teacher.
Okay, so for students, so even in classes where it's all kids in special ed, that will have that.
Correct.
Okay, that's great.
Mhm. That's a good point. I should actually add that specifically to the goal. So thank you for that, Robin.
Any other questions on goals 1, 2, 3? Go ahead, Megan.
Sorry, thanks for this update, Carnett. It's a lot. You've been very busy, so thank you for all the effort at Stacy. I still get caught on goal 1, right? And I know the goal was like a 20% reduction, which is like almost 350. And I'm not like, we didn't make the goal, but as you think about what we need to do differently, just like without kind of going to the goal, kind of like what are the things for you that are going to actually change this? I love the Saturday school and the concept of sort of getting rid of the suspension piece, because I think that the time on learning, like that's going to have so much impactful power. But what else do you think about doing on a day-to-day cultural basis that you think potentially will change this?
Yeah, no, that is actually one of the reasons why we did want to kind of look at or implement like the 6th grade initiative. We've come a long way with like common language and ensuring that we're kind of building that culture. I think that's something we need to continue working on, just ensuring that we're all using the same language and how we're holding students accountable for being safe and being responsible, being respectful. But additionally, there's also times to celebrate, and I don't think we're doing enough of that. So I am hoping that with adding an initiative where we are celebrating the successes that are happening, there'll be this motivation to want to keep succeeding. And additionally, one of our goals that we're going to get into is looking at aligning our practices with standard-based, with our standards. And as students are more engaged in the classroom and Tier 1 practices are stronger and we're supporting culturally responsive practices, I also believe that would be a piece that would support some of the behaviors that we may see in the classroom.
Okay, that's really helpful. We did talk to Mr. Kernan when he was here about technology in school, and I'm curious from your perspective, and I know it's not necessarily a piece of this goal, but I am curious, how much of an issue do you feel like that is in the building?
Technology as in?
Sorry, cell phones, primarily handheld.
We are actually doing very well with
Great.
cell phones.
Excellent.
Cell phones are to be in backpacks and in the lockers, and students
Great.
know that expectation. They knew that at the very beginning of the school year, so
Great.
I have to say that it's been great.
Excellent, that's great to hear.
It's helped shift, although you may not be seeing the decrease in number of discipline referrals, the type is shifting
Yes.
to a less, there's fewer fights, those kinds of things that correlate with students
Social
on their
media.
phones and social media and all of that during the day. So the number may not look like it's decreasing, but we feel the shift in the type of discipline that's coming.
And I think the feedback you're getting, Rachel, supports that, which I think is great. So I'm not
Yeah,
stuck on the number,
right.
but it's helpful to kind of have the context around it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Rob.
I think, and thank you for letting me go again. I just was trying to articulate, I guess, my question, because I'm just thinking about the first goal as well, too. And so, looking at the numbers, I think it's hard because, to me, when I look at this data, I think there's a lot of subjectivity in how disciplinary data is collected. So, when you're looking, is it very clear to you as an administrative team, like, what the exact behavior a student would have that would result in a disciplinary referral, or is it really subjective, like from teacher to teacher, what it could be?
So it's very descriptive. There's
Okay.
a box.
Okay.
We get a narrative on the behavior from
Okay.
the staff member that's putting in the discipline.
Okay, so it's clear that like across the school, discipline is basically like if I did something in Mr. A's class, I'm probably going to be disciplined the same way in Mr. B's class. Like that seems pretty consistent. Okay. And
For the most
For the
part.
most part.
And then I guess the other thing, and this isn't really a question, it's just more it's more a yes or no question because I think it's a bigger topic that I don't necessarily want to get into right now. But when we're looking at this data, or when you're looking at it more so than us, are you looking at just to see our different subgroups of students being identified more than others? Okay, got it. Thank you.
And types of behaviors that are engaging in.
Okay, thank you.
Michael?
I'm new to these numbers, so they seem large to me. How do we compare to like schools? I have no idea if this is usual, unusual.
That's actually a great question. I'm not 100% sure. I guess maybe I should look at what Woodlands and the high schools look like, which would be like similar.
I'd be curious. One of our, Desi has the schools
They-
that are supposed to be.
I don't think they track that actually, like because these referrals. The only thing that goes into our SIMS numbers to the state is really suspensions, and there
Wait.
might be,
Yeah,
I don't think actual discipline, like individual discipline referrals go in
Yeah, I'm
there.
not saying the state track. I'm just curious, like, even gut feeling, like, at a typical middle school in a town like Milford, where are we?
I think at a
Right.
typical middle school, this is a lot of the behaviors are very developmentally appropriate, which is middle schoolers just trying to figure things out, trying to figure out their independence, trying to figure out like, why do I feel the way that I feel all the time, and how do I regulate that? I feel like when Josh and I last year collaborated a lot on like, you know, actions and supporting students, it sounds like once they get there, there's a little more maturity. So some of the numbers look different, some of the infractions may look different.
Yeah, the 286 suspension, that referral, that just seems like a large number, right?
It
So
was a
that's-
large number.
Yeah, so that's where I'm mostly zoned in at. Is this because obviously middle school is a rough time.
Be nice to my babies.
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, that might be perfectly normal. Hey, Josh, do you know off the top of your head how many suspensions in high school?
I do know.
Okay, that's fine. I was just curious. Yeah, I have no idea where we are.
Yeah.
So,
I'm happy to look into that.
Yeah.
Though. I'm actually really curious now to kind of look at how we compare to Woodland in the high school in terms of referrals.
Robin?
I apologize. This just made Mike's question made me think of one more question. And this might be a piece of data you don't have off the top of your head, so I understand that. I don't know if you have an estimate, though, of the 286 referrals for suspensions. How many students is that?
I was going to mention, if it didn't come up, thank you for bringing it up. There, I don't have a rough number, but it's a noticeable number that are
Repeat offenders.
repeat offenders. Someone that we're working with from September to June for a major, behavioral change will often have more than one suspension.
Which is our goal with Saturday School, trying to eliminate some of those.
Mhm.
And the 286 was last year's number, which is really high, and not that this number is better, but 200 is our number, so we kind
Mhm.
of did a little better.
That's
was
like
this
almost
year.
a 30% reduction, so that's pretty good. And I don't think, when I looked at that goal originally, I thought it was a little too ambitious initially. But you also don't want to feel like there's a lot of ways to artificially manipulate that by telling teachers they can't write people up. And I think that they've approached this in a very authentic way, where teachers feel very comfortable, sending a referral down to the office, and we don't want to chill that either, because you don't want to make it feel like, hey, we got to hit our goal, so let's reduce those, let's reduce those referrals. I think some of the other things that they're looking to do are going to have a positive impact, but I do worry about numbers like reducing referrals, because sometimes I think in some situation they'd say, hey, we've hit 180 or whatever the number is to reduce it by 20%. No more referrals for the rest of the year, and I think that there's a nice support. Whenever I'm at Stacy, I see our assistant principals, consistently, and our principal working very hard with students on a variety of issues.
And I think shifting away from the more major disciplinary infractions toward that age-appropriate, inappropriate behavior choice that gives them the, what you may call something silly, a shift in the numbers. They may not go down, but a shift in the behavior towards the less significant is also part of that. Part of that goal.
And part of that restorative justice practice that we want to do is, how do we, in the classroom, support the students that need that support? So again, not to say please stop writing them up, but more of what did we do while we were in the classroom, so that by the time it does get to us, it was something that was repeated or major.
Yeah, I think staying on that, the first goal, looking at it, yeah, at first when you read through, like my other colleagues, it was like, oh man, it didn't really reduce by much, but as you explained, it changed, the behavior changed, right? You're not seeing as dramatic or as severe of those behaviors, so that's good to hear. I guess from my side, it's what can we do here, school committee wise, to help support this goal? There's various aspects of programs in here, but is there anything additionally that school committee can do as far as any type of support programs? Is it a support personnel that a support personnel who targets those 200 plus in, groupings or those specific individuals? And is there a person now that we should be looking at in the future?
I think support personnel would be amazing.
Because I can't even imagine 1,700 incidences divided by 185 days, or 180 days, excuse me. So,
and then 4.
right,
And then
yeah.
4. Yeah.
right, so
Yeah.
that's just way too many that for a particular person to deal with. So that's why I asked that question. Doesn't necessarily have to be answered now, but I want to put that out there because as budget season comes up in the next 4 months, I wouldn't be surprised to see that.
Yes, absolutely.
Michael?
How many students at Stacy?
We are at 1,033 students.
Any other questions on 1, 2, and 3? I'm not seeing any, so on to 4, 5, 6.
Perfect. So our new goals that we would like to focus on this school year, the first one, as I had mentioned, is alignment of curriculum and practices. What we really want to work on is developing a shared understanding of learning standards for middle school academics and establishing academic norms that will foster growth in the indicators of our portrait of our graduates. So what we're really looking at is what is the standard, the grade level standard, and how are we ensuring that students are exposed to grade level content that supports their learning and their growth. We began doing that work this school year by using some of our SQM data and looking at each department has looked at their goals their standards specifically and aligned it with what is happening in the classrooms, and our instructional coach has been doing an amazing job supporting our teachers through that work. So that's really where our focus has been. The next goal which is rigorous and culturally relevant tests through illustrative mathematics. So we're going to be launching a new math curriculum, which has already been launched K through 5. So Carrie will really be monitoring and supporting that launch. So we're really excited because we've heard great things about the lower grades and that curriculum. And then grade 6 is high quality instructional materials, practices, and materials for ELA. So really we're focusing on math and ELA this year. Based on our results, our already mid-year diagnostics, 18% of students were 1 grade level below, 10% of our students were 2 grade level below benchmark, and 36% were 3 or more. So based on that data, we applied to participate in the GLEAM grant, which is Growing Literacy Equity Across Mathematics. And we've started working with them this year, where they have begun supporting us by collecting data on what is happening in the classroom and what books we're using, what texts we're using. And then next phase of that will be providing professional development and supporting or helping pilot a curriculum for ELA. We are looking at piloting that curriculum in about mid-year, because the beginning of the school year is going to be looking at gathering that data, but then also just trying out what we have and how to ensure that we're making it rigorous.
Any questions on goal number 4?
I don't know if it's 4. Sorry, Chris.
No problem.
4, yeah. Carta, could you just clarify for me? So sorry, when you think about the school quality measures, the performance piece, what's the source of the data for that?
So as far as our SQM?
Yeah.
So all students and teachers take the MCIA survey, and they look at all of that data, and then additionally we on our end we look at all of the performance tasks that teachers are currently implementing. And
so it's all the MCIA tasks.
Yes.
Okay. I was curious if a piece of that goal is looking at other sort of assessments, be it iReady or MCAT or another data point. That's all based on.
So all of our data right now are closely aligned.
Okay.
iReady, MCAS,
Oh, that's great.
and
so that's
our
something we look
MCIA.
at. Oh, that'd be really interesting to see. Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Any other questions? Let's see. All right.
That's right for me.
I guess then, so, yeah, hold on.
Just a vote.
Yep, exactly. So Robin headed back too, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Robin,
No, I'm good.
do you
Thank
have any
you.
questions on the other 4,
Just
5,
wanna
and
make
6,
sure I
should
don't
say? Yeah,
lose
I said 4,
power.
and then 5 and 6, obviously, all together, so I just want to make sure that we had that covered. So obviously, looking for a motion to accept the school improvement plan for 2023-2024 for Stacy Middle School as presented. Motion by Michael, second by Robin, all in favor, and it is unanimous. So thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
your
you
time for
very
coming in and
much.
presenting.
Thank you,
Enjoy
everyone.
your upcoming summer and end of the school year.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, everyone.
I've seen a lot of great pictures on social media of the 8th grade promotion, so looked like it's been some good events.
Today, I think, was the most emotional one. We realized
last
it was the last one, and,
Okay.
but
Yep.
it was great.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you so
cried
much.
in front of the entire 8th grade, so
3 times.
3 times.
That's okay. Well, again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to Milford High School. Principal Otland, please come up and join us. And also, yeah, Josh, you can start with the handbook first. Go
Absolutely.
through that. I'm sure it's more minor changes, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. And as I pull it up, just want to also offer a word of affirmation for the committee. I'm pleased to see honoring Mike Britta, like a number of you. I had the privilege to have Mike as my middle school principal, and I remember him as a man of great professionalism and dignity and affection for his students, and it's very fitting that he was honored in this way. So I was pleased that I was here to see you do that. Thank you for recognizing Mike.
Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah. We are only proposing one substantive change in addition to the handbook this year, and it is a subsection on the handbook section on cheating and plagiarism that speaks specifically to the use of artificial intelligence tools as they pertain to academic integrity. So I want to preface this by saying that I have every expectation that we will probably be back here in 12 months proposing revisions to this language. I do not believe at this stage that we can anticipate what the future is going to bring, and this reflects, I think, our current best thinking as to how we can take some reasonable, common sense approaches to try to deter students from using these tools in an inappropriate way. But I do not claim that this is a perfect fix, and like I said, I fully anticipate that we'll be talking about this at great length in the future, and I fully anticipate that we'll be proposing changes to this language once we have the experience of the next school year behind us. So the approach is it's pretty simple. The expectation is that students are producing their work in a Google Classroom document that their teachers are providing to them. So if I'm your English teacher, I send out on Google Classroom a Google Doc, and you copy that doc, and that's where you write your essay. And the reason that we're doing that is because when the essay is produced in the Google Doc that the teacher's produced, the teacher is able to use an application called DraftBack that allows them to actually sort of rewind the creation of the document and see how it was created. The second part of that is a prohibition on copying and pasting content from another platform. So a student doesn't, dial up a paper on ChatGPT, download it into Word, copy the document, paste it over into their Google Doc, and call it a day. And then the third piece of this is, it doesn't reflect a change. This is just sort of informing students of something that we're already doing as part of our instructional practice. We have a database of student writing samples that we generate through what we call our Writing with Colors program. And this is sort of informing students and families that that database would be used as a way to kind of benchmark where a student's writing is at. So if there's a question about whether or not the writing that a student submitted was produced by them, there would be some comparison piece that was produced in a proctored setting, because our Writing with Colors samples are produced in a proctored setting here in school. So let me stop there and see if the committee has any initial, actually, let me make one last comment before I open it up. We had a really, I think, robust and high-quality debate about this at our School Improvement Council, where a number of our students, expressed some concerns about the inconvenience and the nuisance that would accrue to them by having to kind of go through these steps. Students say, well, look, like if I've got a personal computer and I'm using Microsoft Word, and now I have to use Google Docs, and this is just kind of tedious for me, and it's added an additional step. And Our students ultimately, all of our students on the council ultimately voted in favor of this, and everyone on the council voted in favor of it. And something that we talked about at length is, like in a perfect world, we wouldn't be doing this. There's something about limiting students' access to technological tools that doesn't sit quite right with me. At the same time, we're facing I think a pretty significant challenge. All of our students deserve to produce and complete their work in an environment that's characterized by integrity and honesty. And if we don't put some kind of safeguards in place and some kind of mechanisms to try to promote integrity and honesty in academic work, I think a lot of our students are going to be deprived of an opportunity that they deserve as students. So with that, thank you, and let me kind of open that up for any questions, comments, or discussions.
Michael?
So I might have conversations about stuff like this every night at the dinner table. And also being in a tech startup, my company, we're aggressively going after ChatGPT to integrate it into our workflow. So I'm really well aware, especially ChatGPT 4. If you haven't tried it, it is mind-blowing, especially when it comes to writing. Anyways, quick story. We're at the dinner table. Kristen was, obviously my wife. She had a student who cut and paste and went to the student and said, hey. And this policy is perfect because that's exactly what happened is that, when you look at the history, all of a sudden it appeared. And so she knew as an English teacher, as an English teacher that, hey, the student probably got this from somewhere else, but because of the history, she could say, hey, he sat the student down and said, yeah, you got this from somewhere else. So I think this policy is perfect. I would like to see next year how to start using the technology productively. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think anybody's there yet in the world. But I think by next year we'll have a better understanding of how we can use it for a tool.
Thank you.
Maybe.
I guess, Josh, this is obviously something that we're going to encounter at some point during the year, just it's 2023. Could you just speak to sort of a communication plan for this? I know it'll be in the handbook, which everyone reads cover to cover, but if there were other modes of planned communication for families so that there's no surprise.
Yeah, so in my communication to families at the start of the year, I typically update them on any changes to the handbook, and when I meet with all of our students at the start of the year, I update them on changes to the handbook, and I am confident that, most importantly, my colleagues in the classroom will be clarifying what this means for students and reinforcing these expectations on an ongoing basis.
Any other questions? The handbook, and in particular ChatGPT?
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have questions about what you wrote in the handbook. I'm just curious from more of just kind of thinking about how can we use technology to our advantage. Would you ever consider using this as a tool to show students like what a sample might look like or something like that down the road? Or is it just right now we're just going to avoid this technology and then?
Well, I don't think avoiding the technology is an option. And I don't think, I think any effort to prohibit students from using the technology is a fool's errand, right? It is entirely conceivable that even with this policy in place, a student could have an artificial intelligence tool draft to paper for them, and they could have it open in one browser tab, and they could just type it in verbatim into the Google Doc, right? So, academic dishonesty is as old as formal education. This isn't like a new problem, right? This is just a new variant on an age-old problem. So, there's a lot to be excited about when we think about artificial intelligence in schools, and then there's a lot to be, I think, intimidated and worried about as well. So that's going to be the challenge for educators, right? Is how do we use this in a way that benefits students, and how do we try to manage it in a way that mitigates some of the risks, right? But yeah, there's every reason to expect that if we're back, right? If we're back here in 5 years' time, talking about the applications of artificial intelligence tools in public schools, I anticipate we'll be having a radically different conversation than we're having today.
Questions? So, yeah, I guess one. Do you foresee, not necessarily to the policy itself, but do you see teachers almost going back to handwriting out small, short essays or short answers?
I don't think anything's off the table right now. I was actually having a conversation with some colleagues today about. I've heard many teachers convey misgivings about their choice to continue using digital tools and technologies that they started using in 2020 and 2021 to cope with remote learning, that they've continued using in their practice and are kind of saying, I don't know if this is actually good for our students. So, we've been in a movement where there's been a really, I think, enthusiastic embrace of educational technology. And I think a lot of folks that work in education right now are starting to think about, should we be like deliberately electing to forego digital tools in some instances and using analog methods because of some of the downside risks of digital tools. And that's not so much about, academic integrity matters. I was talking to some colleagues about the way that digital technology interferes with students' attention, right? If you can't sustain your attention on a task, you're not going to do very well at that task, or you're not going to get much out of it. So I think the debate around like educational technology is taken on a new direction in 2023. Like, we've been debating educational technology for a long time in schools. It's taken a new shape and direction right now, both because the way that technology is used in schools changed radically in 2020 and 2021, not because technology evolved quickly, right, but because by necessity, right, we started using things that were already existing. And then in the past, I'd say in the past 6 months, folks in the public schools have become aware of artificial intelligence applications that are open, open source, free, and I think that's also like reframing the debate in ways that we haven't engaged in before.
No, it sounds like you're engaging in staff in those types of conversations and how to evolve or uninvolve.
We don't have it figured out, but we're talking about it.
Right, you're talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it. All right. Any other questions on anything else on the handbook, or was it primarily just that? So, any other questions in regard to the handbook? Not seeing, so looking for a motion to accept the 2023-2024 Milford High School handbook. Motion by Michael, second by Robin, all in favor, and that is unanimous, with Matt now joining the meeting. So excellent.
All right, thank you for your support.
Good.
So we'll talk about the school improvement plan next.
Yep. And that will be on our page 170 for everybody, so they can roll through.
So let me just sort of present this as pretty concisely and pretty high level, and then we're happy to talk about any or all of the items in as much depth as you'd like. 8 focus areas, right? Mental health, chronic absenteeism, academic advising, college readiness, career readiness, inclusive instruction, curriculum development, and strategic improvement planning. Mental health, this is about getting better at promoting mental health and responding effectively to students that are struggling with mental illness. As I think some of you are aware, we're completing year 1 of a 3-year partnership with a group called the JED Foundation that the school committee supported. That partnership and the contract with the JED Foundation. Year 1 was a self-study in the development of a strategic action plan. And year 2 is going to be around implementing that strategic action plan and starting to measure the degree to which we're moving the needle in terms of our efficacy in promoting mental health amongst our students and responding effectively to students that are struggling with mental illness. And we're launching a new Bridges Classroom. Again, the school committee was instrumental in providing, advocating for fiscal support from the town in the launch of our new Bridges Classroom, and that's a key part of our strategy to support students who have the most intensive struggles with mental illness here in school. The second area of focus is chronic absenteeism. We just got 1 year under our belt of working with our new attendance interventionists. The goal next year is to get a whole lot better in terms of how we as an administrative team and our counseling staff work with those interventionists and how we also work independently of the interventionists. We have seen a troubling rise in chronic absenteeism in American public schools at all levels, in all areas of the country, and that's the truth here in Milford High School as well. And we know that if students are missing a lot of school, nothing else we do is going to really make much of a difference if we can't get them to come to school more. So mental health is priority number 1, right? If students aren't well, they can't learn. Attendance is priority number 2, because students got to be here, and they got to be here pretty much all the time if they're going to thrive and be successful here in school. Number 3 is this is a new goal and one that I'm especially motivated to work on. This is around sort of making some major changes to the way that we engage students and families in the academic advising process. I am Really looking forward to starting to work with students and families beginning in grade 7 to educate them about the incredible educational opportunities that they have available to them here at Milford High School, and continue with that in the first semester of grade 8. Students are they're completing course selection for 9th grade in roughly February and March of their 8th grade year. And we want to start working with students in grade 8 to develop a draft 4-year academic plan for their time here at Milford High School. It's something that's become really clear to me through some of the learning that I've done in the past year, and I have a lot of regret about this, and I want to try to make it right. I think we have a lot of young people that are missing out on great opportunities at Milford High School because they don't know they exist. And I also think we have a lot of students that are learning about programs that we have at Milford High School in their junior or senior year. And so they weren't able to take full advantage of those programs because many of our programs are 3 and 4 year programs. And so if you don't engage in these programs from year 1, you can't get everything that's available out of those programs. So we have work to do with our current students and families as well, to try to ensure that everyone in our community knows about the opportunities that are available to them so they can take full advantage of those opportunities. But a major change that we're going to try to implement going forward in the future is having a very deliberate, systematic, high-touch campaign to work with students and families beginning in the 2nd semester of 7th grade and continuing in the 1st semester of 8th grade to help them learn about the opportunities up here at Milford High School. The 4th area is college readiness, which has been it's been a focus area of every school improvement plan since I've been the principal of Milford High School. We seek to continue to expand our dual enrollment offerings. Specifically, we hope to do so in English for next year. We hope to expand and improve the academic supports that we're offering for students that are taking college credit courses here at Milford High School. And we are looking to double our One Goal participation, and that will be possible because of the financial support that the town has provided on the personnel side and that the school committee advocated for and supported, and we're very grateful for that. Similarly, career readiness is an item that I believe has been on every school improvement plan since I've become the principal. We hope to continue to expand our work-based learning program, and we also want to make a big push next year to expand opportunities for credit articulation and credentialing. And if the term credit articulation is kind of a jargon term, so let me explain that if you're not familiar with it. Credit articulation agreements, I'll give you an example. So we have a long-standing credit articulation agreements in our early childhood education program with a couple of different community colleges, where if you complete our early childhood education courses at Milford High School and then you matriculate to a college that we have an articulation agreement with, it's upon matriculation that they grant you credit for the courses. So students they're not awarded transcripted credits while in high school, but because of the articulation agreement with a given college, they're awarded credits upon matriculation, right? And so we want to expand our opportunities for articulation and for credentialing. So, we have some credentials that students are earning right now. So for example, students in our building trades program earn what's called a PACT certificate, which is an industry recognized credential, or what's called an IRC. Students in our food service management program are earning ServSafe credentials. We believe there is the potential to significantly expand the credentialing opportunities for students through the courses that are already available here at Milford High School. The 6th area, inclusive instruction. This is also an area that's been a constant feature of our school improvement plans. We want to continue the work that we've done over the past 5 years with respect to professional development and co-teaching, and we believe that next year is the year we know that next year is the year that we transition to a fully in-house program. We're no longer working with external consultants to deliver that professional development and support, but it's our teacher leaders here in school that are delivering that professional development and support. And as I'm sure you're aware, the district will be embarking on professional development with respect to culturally responsive practices in our classrooms next year, and so that will be part of our work to provide the highest level of inclusive instruction for our students. Number 7 is around curriculum development. Again, thanks to the financial support of the town and the advocacy of the school committee, we're going to be shifting to full-year programs, a full-year program in American government, and we're going to be implementing a new graduation requirement in financial literacy. And so we will have teams of teachers that are working next year to develop that curriculum for implementation piloting in FY25, full-scale implementation in FY26. And then lastly, strategic improvement plan number 8. I'm very pleased to announce tonight to both the committee and the public that there will be an official press release that's coming out next week, but I think it's okay for me to announce this publicly that the Milford Public Schools Milford High School has been the recipient of a $100,000 grant from the Barr Foundation to support high school redesign at Milford High School. And in a nutshell, what we want to try to accomplish is there have been different stakeholder groups engaging in different but isolated conversations about school improvement for a while, right? So this is one venue where we talk about school improvement. Our School Improvement Council is another venue. Our Student Advisory Council is another venue. And we've got some big stuff coming up with the Ask reaccreditation, right? At some point, we expect that we're going to be invited for funding into the MSBA process, and part of that is going to be developing an educational vision. We need to take these different stakeholder groups that are having these different conversations, and we need to sort of bring them together into a coherent and coordinated process where these different stakeholders are talking with one another and having a shared conversation. As you all know, we're a complex organization with a complex program, so it makes sense to be having some specialized groups focused on specialized parts of the program, but we also need to make sure that those conversations and the planning is being done in a coordinated and coherent way. And the support from the Barr Foundation is going to allow us to do that. So, we are going to be not only establishing a new team of administrators and teacher leaders that are going to be kind of like this centralizing body to bring that work together, but we also hope to be launching a series of convening events with some of these different stakeholders in these different groups going forward. At least I'm hoping on a biannual basis, twice a school year, we're bringing together the stakeholders from these different groups for sort of a collective conversation. We're hoping that's getting everyone to kind of row in the same direction and to have their conversations and do their work in a way where they're cognizant of the conversation work that's going on in these different bodies. So thank you for listening. Let me see if I can respond to any questions that you might have about any of those items.
Thank you, Josh, for presenting. Looking at the committee, any questions on goals? Go ahead, Matt.
So I'll go with number 5 on the career readiness. We know it's been complicated to find teachers, and I know that's been a building trades position open. Have you seen a similar struggle finding qualified, experienced people in those fields that fit the educational model?
Are we having trouble
filling for career readiness, for example, for building trades, right? Is it still a struggle in that sense to find somebody with experience who wants to be in the classroom?
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. Yeah. I mean, the teacher labor market is, I've been hiring for 15 years. I've never seen conditions like this. And there are, the more specialized the discipline is, the more challenging the market is right now.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Megan.
Oh, these are great, Josh. I love goal 3. I'm actually surprised you said 7th grade. That was like, wow, that's even, like, it's really getting down there. I think
we have a lot to teach them about. It's going to take a little while.
I think that's fantastic. And I'm certain that'll be quite impactful. And I apologize if you said this. Do you envision actually starting that this year?
Yes, in FY24.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. Thanks.
Yeah, so my hope is that I will spend a significant amount of time personally with my colleagues and students, meeting with middle school students and families in 8th grade in the first semester, and that we'll spend a significant amount of time in the second semester with 7th grade students.
I think that's incredible. I look forward to hearing about it. That's going to be great. I was curious on the credentialing piece. Who's leading that? Is it the subject instructor? Like, who's actually driving that effort to obtain those, or to identify potential and navigate that process?
We have a number of different folks who are involved in that work. So we had a group of teacher leaders this year that convened in a group that we called our Career Success Council. This was supported by a grant from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. They've started identifying a number of opportunities for credentialing that we're not currently taking advantage of. We also have a multi-year relationship with a consulting group called Specialized Career Guidance that's helped us identify a number of credentialing opportunities that we weren't previously aware of.
Great, that's excellent. Okay, and then my last question was just on number 8. I mean, I think the sort of final outcome of number 8 is a transformation, right? Which I think is incredibly powerful. Is the work product like a strategic plan? Kind of a, is that?
Yeah,
right in thinking about
I think you're going to see a few work products that come out of this. I mean, ultimately, the one that we're really excited about is the MSBA educational vision. Right? I mean, when we have the opportunity to design a renovated school or a newly constructed school, we want that design to be a very deliberate, intentional design that's going to support a very specific vision that represents the voices of a lot of stakeholders and a lot of really deep, thoughtful analysis about who we want to be in the future. But yeah, I mean, I think you're going to see output from this reflected in future school improvement plans.
Got it.
I think you're going to see it reflected in hopefully the MSBA educational vision document. I hope that you're going to see it reflected in the self-study document that we produce as part of NEASC reaccreditation.
Okay, that's curious. Thanks. Thanks for.
Just in regards to number 2, have we seen any changes this year in absenteeism?
We have.
Okay.
Yes, we've seen a dramatic increase in chronic absenteeism.
Okay. So when we say chronic, could you just kind of define what we consider chronic?
Yeah, attendance rates below 90%.
Do you have any guesses to factors for that, or just kind of we're going to continue to look at the data and see what we can find out?
Well, we do. Regrettably, I think like most educational outcome measures, when you disaggregate by demographic factors, you see stark differences between subgroups. And so we are seeing rates of chronic absenteeism that are much higher amongst high-need students than the non-high-need students. And we can and do slice into some of the subgroups within the high needs category. And we do see significantly higher rates of chronic absenteeism amongst English learners than any other group that we serve here in school. So that doesn't speak to the why, that just describes the what with a little bit more kind of granular detail. I think the why is extraordinarily complicated. I think the work that our attendance interventionists have done this year has I think it's led to like an increasingly complicated understanding of like the many factors behind chronic absenteeism. I think it's very difficult to generalize. There's definitely some trends that are emerging, and again, when you disaggregate data, you start to see some of those trends, and you can make some inferences about possible kind of factors behind those demographic drivers. But yeah, I think the qualitative stories that Victor and Dale have shared, I think have painted a really complicated picture. If I was to summarize it, I mean, Kevin and I were just part of one of these conversations today with colleagues from across the district. I think all of you are aware we have many children that are growing up in households that are facing profound and complicated hardships right now. And those hardships negatively impact children in many, many ways. And school attendance is but one of the many ways that that poverty negatively impacts children.
I think, and kind of staying on that, Josh, does chronic absenteeism also mean like tardiness, so that they're late for the first 2 periods of the day, or is it absenteeism is they've gone for the entire day?
The way that it's publicly reported by the state is we're looking at full day absenteeism. I mean, we care about time that students are missing from school.
Right. If they're missing the first period chronically, right? That's an absenteeism to that.
Absolutely.
To that class, but they're coming in at 9 o'clock and they're making their next.
Yeah.
Blocks.
So any time out of school is problematic. Right. When we're trying to understand why, right? Missing full days of school regularly and coming late regularly are 2 different types of challenges that we're facing, right? There's some students who we're dealing with both challenges, right? They're both missing a lot of full days, and when they're coming to school tardy, on a frequent basis. And I think the way that we respond to tardiness versus full day absenteeism, I think traditionally has been a bit different, in that tardiness we've often used a pretty traditional behaviorist approach, right? Like, hey, you can get to school on time. We're going to use some punishments right now to try to modify your behavior, and we're open to talking if there's some hardship that we got to consider right now. Full day absences from school sometimes are correctly characterized as truancy, right? The students got no good reason why they're not in school, they're playing hooky, right? I don't think that most of the chronic absenteeism that we see is rightfully characterized as truancy, right? A lot of the tardiness, I think, is a form of truancy, right? Students can get here to school on time, but I don't know, 7:50 is a little hard for some adolescents, right?
Right.
And so I think that's a variant of truancy.
Yeah, I wanted to see if there was, two kind of separate categories, which obviously you explained that it's two separate categories. I just wasn't sure, the chronic absenteeism, do we also have chronic tardiness?
Absolutely.
Is it its own category? And not that it has to be on this, but it's on your radar and there is
Yes, so
working to improve.
In the numbers that are reported publicly, right, your rate of chronic absenteeism is it's a measurement of full day absenteeism. In terms of this school improvement plan and what we want to work on, we want to work on getting more kids to school more of the time, right? Tardy, absent, whatever, doesn't matter, right? We have a lot of students that are missing way too much school, and we need to get better at working with those students and their families to promote better attendance.
Any other? Yes, Michael.
Has attendance decreased from previous years?
Or has absenteeism worsened?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. And this is a nationwide trend at every level.
So I'd be curious, obviously not now, maybe at a future meeting, to kind of go through. We've hired 2 attendance officers, right?
Correct.
And how, if it got worse this year, why, and then what are we doing to move forward?
So in terms of the why, again, I think very complicated story, right? But I think one thing I'd point out, the fact that we're seeing an explosion in chronic absenteeism nationally, right? I think to me says that the pandemic is a big part of this story, right? The pandemic fundamentally changed habits of school attendance in ways that we haven't restored pre-pandemic norms, right? Before the pandemic, we went to school 5 days a week, right? And you have millions of children across this country who for, 16 months did not go to school for 5 days a week. Some students didn't go to school for any days a week for 16 months, right? In terms of what are we doing differently, that's a big part of, that's what goal number 2 is about, right? Is continuing to adapt our approaches because the current approaches that we're using are not adequate, right? One thing that we talked about today in our meeting, and then I'm also sort of excited about is we believe that home visits are a really impactful tool in trying to disrupt chronic absenteeism. And we're going to be working as an administrative team to get out to visit homes this summer ourselves. And we're also going to be posting tomorrow for stipended summer positions at the high school level through a grant called the MassGrad grant to employ teams to work with 200 high school students and families over the summer to both meet with them here on campus and or in their homes or neutral sites to engage with them around issues of attendance. So I do not claim to know the formula for throwing these trends in reverse, but I do think we have some emerging evidence that home visits and sustained one-on-one engagement between a dedicated staff member and students and families is those are 2 of the most promising strategies that I think we know of at this stage.
Matt?
Just one more comment. I wanted to commend you for trying to work to expand the credentialing piece. I think that's really important, especially coming from the tech industry, right? The idea of experience and credentialing in the tech world is in many times more valuable than a generic degree. And it's something I was actually exposed to 21 years ago when I was in high school. One of the reasons I was a tech nerd early on, which is one of the reasons what drove me to Tri-County and a computer shop program, and they started Cisco certifications in high school, and it started my junior year, so I didn't finish it, but I was more than halfway to having that certification, and that drove me into my field and into my career way faster than anybody else that was around. So providing those opportunities for students, college or not, gives them such a leg up and gets a lot more attention on them when it comes to potential employers down the road. So I think that's an excellent thing to be driving for in the career readiness piece.
Thank you, and I just want to highlight a connection between that and something else that we're doing, right? Some of these credentialing opportunities will only be available to students who start to take advantage of those opportunities at the beginning of high school, right? Because you'll need 4 years of coursework in order to do the work to get the credential, which is why it's so important that we're doing a good job educating students and families before they get to Milford High School about what those opportunities are.
Well, and that's a good piece to tie into, and I know we heard from Haley probably about a month ago, who said one of her I wouldn't call it regret, I don't know the word she used, but was that there was a lot of programs here that she didn't necessarily know about. So it's good to hear from you that you guys are working on trying to take this massive offering that you have and make everybody aware ahead of time so they can plan out properly, which is very beneficial for everybody, certainly.
Yeah. We're excited about it. We have the students in Milford are very fortunate that this high school has a lot to offer them, and we need to do a better job making sure that no one is unaware of those opportunities and that students are making informed choices.
When you talk to that too, how do you balance the schedule where, if you're going to potentially have a conflict, right? So a student chooses a pathway, but that pathway conflicts with other subjects, other core subjects.
Yeah, you can't do it all, right? You can't do 4 years of performing arts, do an advanced math and science set of courses, and also go deep in web design, right? And take 4 years of a language, right? So, students take 28 full-year course equivalent. Take the equivalent of 28 full-year courses, over the span of their time here in Milford High School under our current schedule model, right? That's part of what we need to educate students and families about. Is we have a lot of wonderful things on offer. You cannot get all of them on your plate, right? So we want to help you make strategic choices about what you want to get on your plate. And we also want to make sure that we preserve the exploratory element of high school as well. Right? I mean, listen, expecting 14 and 15-year-old students to be able to say, this is the area in which I want to specialize, right? That's not developmentally appropriate. It's not realistic. I think most of us in adulthood recognize that it probably wasn't until, mid-late 20s, right, when many of us sort of kind of gain clarity on what we wanted to do sort of professionally. So, we want to make sure that students know that they can pursue a specialized pathway and they can pursue deep focused learning in a specialized area if they want. But we're also not trying to drive students into specialized pathways, because part of the benefit of going to a school like Milford High School is that you can try a lot of stuff on and see what you like, right? How does a 13-year-old know if they're going to like engineering classes until they take engineering classes, right? I didn't understand what engineering was until I was in my late 20s, right? And even now, I just have a superficial understanding of what engineering is. So yeah, it's, we want to educate folks so they can make informed choices, but we're not necessarily trying to drive people into specialized pathways. The exploratory experience is a valuable experience as well.
Yeah, when you talk about the exploratory experience, do you ever foresee there's another school a couple towns away that do that exploratory kind of weeks, where they allow students to do the different things? Has that ever been considered to try to show that 14-year-old, well, here are the here's engineering, here's the biomedical sciences, here are the different pathways.
Yeah, long range, if I could wave a magic wand, we're doing that exploratory work in middle school prior to students making course selection for grade 9, so that they are choosing grade 9 classes not based on a presentation that they attended, but based on some experience that they've had in school, where they started to get to try stuff on a little bit in middle school. And so, they have experiences in middle school. They also listen to presentations in middle school. All right, now they can make, more informed choices. In the short term, something that we've had some very, very preliminary discussions about is, right now we offer classes in 2 sizes, primarily, full year and semester, right? If we were to offer a host of electives on a quarter basis, right, you could have more sort of exploratory options within that. So there's trade-offs in doing that as well. But that, again, we are certainly thinking about, we're thinking broadly about how we educate students and families about the opportunities that are available. And we recognize that, presentations are an important part of that, but experience is a much richer type of education for anyone, right? So the more we can get students to, have experiences that expose them to the diverse types of programming we have here, the better choices they can make.
Right. That's good. Matt?
Yeah, I just wanted to just add one more quick piece, because you talking about this exploration, I think is really important. It has a lot of benefit because if you look at college stats, right, the amount of kids going into college is lower now than it has been before. Graduating is the same thing. One of the factors that's always really held kids back from finishing college, one of the many, is just losing interest, losing focus, right? You just talked about how does a 14-year-old know if they want engineering or technology or building trades. But you get to be a junior and a senior, and the general struggle that most kids have is, what college do I pick? What major do I want? Sit down, pick it, because you're about to spend $60, $70, $120,000 or more on a path you think you might want. And the biggest benefit is if we can help guide that decision and pique that interest now, it's going to ripple into the college decision, which is going to make that more focused and a more appropriate decision for them that may result in more success in the college world, and that's going to drive all the way through life. So I think that that this focus on exposing kids to everything they can and trying to find that interest rather than just being a junior and being like, I don't know, plumbing seems like fun. Like, you know, it's a lot better to drive it through actual experience and exposure.
Yeah. When we use those two words like college readiness, right? I mean, this means like having the academic chops to make it through college. It means having the mindset to make it through college. It also involves like career exploration and awareness, right? So that you're approaching that college experience with intentionality and focus. And you know, as you're saying, like if college is the time where you're figuring it out, in many cases there's a happy ending to that story. Actually, in most cases in this country, there's not a happy ending to that story, right? Most students who try to go to college in the United States drop out without a degree, right? There's a lot of factors behind that, but one of which is students not going to college with a really clear sense of why they're going to college, because they haven't learned enough about the world, right? They don't know what's possible, right? They're young, and their high school experience hasn't exposed them to the diversity of the world of work, and you know that negatively impacts their ability to engage in college in the way that they might.
Any other questions on the MHS School Improvement Plan? Not seeing, so looking for a motion to accept the 2023-2024 Milford High School School Improvement Plan. Motion by Michael, second by Matt, and then all in favor, and that is unanimous. So,
It's a good segue to talk about college for a minute, right?
sounds good, yes,
All right.
exactly.
I got a handout for you. I'm sorry I didn't have this for you in advance. I'm not going to stumble over your wire. Catastrophic.
Thank you.
I think it's one from this one. All right, thanks.
So I'm sorry, let me get to the microphone. The list that you have in front of you, it's ordered by matriculation. So the school at the top of the list, UMass Amherst. We have 17 students in the class 2023 matriculate into UMass Amherst in the coming years. The first column lists acceptances, right? And we have many colleges at which students were accepted, but for whatever reason elected not to matriculate to. I thought it would be maybe helpful for the committee and also for the community who might be listening at home, for me just to highlight a short list of, I think, colleges and universities that many folks are familiar with that Milford High School students have been accepted to in the class of 2023. American University, Bentley University, Boston College, Boston University, Brandeis University, Bryant University, Bucknell University, Case Western Reserve, Clark, Clemson, Duke, Fordham, Franklin and Marshall, Hamilton College, Hampshire College, Hofstra, Howard, Ithaca, James Madison University, Mass College of Pharmacy and Health Science, Northeastern University, Norwich University, Providence College, Quinnipiac, Reed, Rensselaer Polytechnic, Rhode Island School of Design, Rochester Institute of Technology, St. Michael's College, Seton Hall, George Washington University, Trinity College, Tufts University, Union College, United States Coast Guard Academy, UC San Diego, UConn, UMass Amherst, UMass Lowell, University of Miami, UVM, and Worcester Polytechnic Institute. So that's just a sampling of, I think, sort of well-known and well-regarded institutions of higher education that students in the class of 2023 were accepted to in the past year. Many of you have heard me say before, one of the things that I'm most proud of at Milford High School is that we offer an academic program that is as high caliber as any you will find at any public or private high school in Massachusetts or the United States of America, in a remarkably diverse environment. And I think our college acceptance list is evidence of that. Students who are serious about their academics, we can help them reach the most highly selective colleges and universities in the United States. So it's a credit to our students and our families and our teachers. Highly selective admissions is problematic, to say the least. Nonetheless, I think it reflects well in the school system when we see our graduates going on to some of the most well-regarded institutions of higher education in the country.
Thank you for presenting. It's an impressive list, that's for sure. So speaks accolades to the academic integrity of our school system. So thank you. Any questions for Mr. Otland in regards to the college subject matter? Not seeing any, so, but no, thank you very much for presenting. I think it's, it's a lot to take in when there's so many listed here, and I think it's really impressive just to see, there are students obviously that are not going to some of these schools that are very high caliber schools for whatever reason, but to know that they were accepted is very telling. So,
yep.
Oh, Robin.
I have a quick question. It's not about college.
Mhm.
Do we have any students entering the military? Do you know?
We had 2 students entering the military in the class 2023.
Thank you.
And one thing that I would just add about the list that I'm pleased to see, when you look at the list as it's ranked by matriculation, right? A big emphasis that we're trying to place in our academic advising efforts right now is on the issue of affordability, because we know that one of the reasons behind college attrition is students matriculating to schools that they are not prepared to pay for 4 years, right? So that's been a really important part of our counseling program, is placing a strong emphasis on affordability. And so I am pleased to see that students are taking advantage of the incredible value that they can access at public colleges and universities here in the Commonwealth. Our students are very, very fortunate to go to live in a state where we have a world-class system of public institutions of higher education, and I'm very pleased to see our students taking advantage of that, because affordability is going to be a key advantage of attending a public college and university here in the Commonwealth.
Excellent. Well, again, thank you very much for presenting handbook, school improvement plan, and college.
All right, thanks everyone. Be well.
Thank you.
Take care.
Great job. All right. Moving on to the community use board, a appointment of a new member. So as you saw from in the packet, we have Richard Brothers, Nick Zakili, Tony. Thank you. Chipinapi.
Chinapi.
Chinapi. Chinapi. I knew I was going to butcher that one. So, Paige Brown and Ron Andrews. Obviously, we're very pleased to see that Mr. Zakili and Mr. Chipinapi were able to have enclosed bios. Not sure if there's any discussions. Obviously, this will be for a 3-year term appointment on the community use board. So I'll open it up to any discussion. Megan.
So we talked about setting up sort of a subcommittee and some process around this. I was just curious if there was an update as to how that's going before we make another decision on someone else.
I can give a little update on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the subcommittee is focused more on the policy of where community use is. We haven't gotten to how the board is formed yet. So we've started. We go back and forth with community use to get a meeting together to come to meet with them. So we've started.
There was a meeting posted, I think, Michael, no?
For community use?
In May, I thought, for the joint group to meet.
Yeah.
I was just curious how that went.
Yeah, so there was a community use meeting. We were, there's some miscommunication
Okay,
on it.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
Which we cleared up quickly
Got it.
after. So we're waiting for community use to get back to us now to say, hey, we're going to meet and whatnot. So they've been going back and forth. So we're waiting to meet with them and then kind of have a discussion at the high level and then work our way down.
think we have to applaud Melissa and Kevin for sending out meeting notices to us that go into our calendars, so that way we're constantly reminded. So again, I think it was it was just a learning experience from our communication level, and
I just felt like part of the challenge with the process, Chris, like,
yeah,
is we don't set clear expectations in terms of what we'd like to hear from these people, and so I have a very hard time. I mean, I know a number of these people, and they're fantastic, and I'd love to see them on the board. I just struggle with the equity of our process as we make these appointments.
The handpicking out of a person from.
Is there a recommendation from the existing board?
I did not receive any recommendation from the existing board.
Are we expected to vote tonight?
That was my hope. So, Matt.
For unnecessary but obvious reasons, I will abstain from the vote.
Based on it.
Technically not needed, but I'll do it anyway since
Based
there's
on
4 of
last
you here.
name, yeah,
So,
exactly.
I guess
yeah.
I'll.
Go ahead.
Yeah. If we're gonna, out of the 5 names, the one that stands out is Nick Zakili to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody knows anybody else, but Nick is, well, I think we all have some connection to Nick.
Right. You was here earlier.
Yeah.
There. So I guess if any other board members have any association with any people where they can speak to their what they could provide to the board, I think it would be beneficial too.
Yeah. Nick has 35 plus years at the school system, so.
So I know both Mr. Chinapi, who has been quite involved in our district for quite some time. I think he also is quite active in the mentoring program. And I also personally know Paige Brown, who's just a fantastic human. I believe she also serves on the youth commission and has 2 students in the district, which is really appealing to me in terms of from the youth angle and students that are super active in sports and programs. I think there's a lot of benefit that could be provided there if you have active children.
Exactly. No, I think that's a very strong benefit also. Yes. So.
Can we ask them to come in next meeting?
I mean, if we want to hold off and bring people in.
I prefer we do, or at least ask them each to provide an answer to a question. So
yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
I would prefer that too. I know 2 of the people on the list, and the rest I don't know.
Yeah.
Is Tony's Kara's?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, and I think it's nice to have some type of connection with these people because we understand. And I asked for a quick bio in hopes that they would promote themselves for this position. Some did, some did not. So, Robin, yes.
So this might be obviously not necessarily a scope of something that we need to do in the near future, but I guess not being part of that joint board, maybe one hope I would have, I don't know if it's possible, if we could develop a rubric, I think that would be the most fair way to go about doing this. So it's just an idea, because right now it does feel like essentially we're just kind of picking names out of a hat. And so I don't like that. And so I don't know, I think a rubric in that way, we could just make it public. I think what's challenging about this board, to be completely frank, is that there's 3 different bodies within the town that appoint to it. And so if we're not following a consistent set of practice, I think that's a problem. So, maybe we should even talk to the select board and town moderator to see how are they appointing people to this board to make sure there's some type of consistent processes. But
we're going to go through all that.
Yeah, that's part of what the subcommittee's going to do. That's one of their tasks.
Okay.
Certainly to look at that and because I can speak to the select board has basically a talent pool, which is kind of similar to this, where you just fill out a form in town hall and you submit it, right? And it has the different offices that or boards that you'd be interested in. So.
And I could be wrong, but I thought for many of the boards in town, oftentimes whoever the chairperson is makes a recommendation for who should be appointed to. So I don't know if that's something that we would want to consider if there's a chairperson of the community use board now, if they can make a recommendation.
Okay. Yeah, we can take that under advisement. So yes, Michael.
So you asked people to provide a bio, right?
I did.
And only 2 people took the time to provide a bio?
Correct. Yeah, and I reached back out to all the other individuals. I did reach back out earlier this week and say, could you please provide a bio? So it does narrow the field down from that standpoint. There was other individuals that reached out to ask a little bit more about the role, which I answered to, and then never heard back from. Also, so there was another 3 or 4 individuals there too. So the interest was there, which was nice to see. I did get a lot of reach out. Well, like I said, I only had the 2 bios where I'm close to. But again, happy to continue this on where we can bring people in and have a little better process. It's not a problem. It's not holding up business at community use. at any stretch.
I personally would appreciate that.
Yep, okay. I'm okay with that. You're all right with that too? All right, so, yeah, we will continue this at a later date.
So I'll start that as a future agenda item. How's
Yeah,
that?
that's fine. Yep. So, no, I appreciate everybody chiming in on it, so that's what we're here for. All right, moving on then to our first read of the wellness policy. Turn it over to you, Robin.
Sure. So in your packet, you will find a heavily edited wellness policy. So this is just a first reading, so it does not require a vote tonight, but I just want to point out, I know that there's notes about this in the packet, but the changes that are in red were those that were proposed by the current director of nursing, and then the ones that are yellow highlights are from the policy subcommittee. But I just wanted to really quickly provide a little bit of background to the yellow highlighted ones and also make a couple of additional suggested changes as you're considering this policy. So the first yellow highlight where it defines wellness, that was in the old policy. The suggestion had been to remove it, but the committee felt we liked keeping it in there so that it was clear what we were talking about, and this is based on the DESE definition as well. The next yellow highlighted change you will see in your packet would be on page 5. And so for that, there was a discussion about, instead of listing specific programs, because those could change over time, the policy committee suggested we have it say evidence-based programs. One additional edit, though, I want to mention is just where the strike through begins. So if you see on that page, this is the part that's in red right before the yellow highlighted evidence-based programs. The strike through begins at responsive classroom. I would propose, or the committee would propose, beginning it at the words programs such as, so then it would just read through evidence-based programs, which I think just reads clearer. And then the other highlighted would be on the next page. If you go down where it has school-based mental health counselor, I would just ask that we would consider having that say school-based mental health personnel, because when you say school-based mental health counselor, I think we're unnecessarily excluding the school psychologist, which I don't think is our intention. So those are the changes, and you can see essentially the red ones were from the director of nursing and the yellow ones were from the policy subcommittee. Again, this is a first reading, so it does not require a vote tonight.
Thank you, Robin. Any questions or comments on this? Stands right now. All right, we'll bring it back for a second read then at a next meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you for that update, Robin. All right, then moving on to the report from our superintendent of schools.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got 2 updates for the committee this evening. The first one is kind of a nice segue from Principal Otland's presentation. We've been meeting as kind of an attendance group for the entire year. So each building has a representative and our 2 attendance supervisors participate. And I think one of the things we've realized is, and Josh said this, so I don't want to go over a lot of the same ground, but when we make a personal connection or have a personal touch, we seem to get a good result. Not 100% of the time, but there's usually a better outcome from that. And because we have such a high number of students and families across the district that are chronically absent, we wanted to try something a little different this summer. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a group of folks who are going to be central office, building administrators, some of our staff members, I think potentially maybe our school resource officers or some folks from the family unit. And we're going to go out 5 times during the summer, basically from about 3 p.m. to about 8 p.m. and visit families and have conversations. And this isn't going to solve the issue. I have no belief that this is going to solve the issue. But we want to just get those touches and those connections and have folks that are really engaged in the schools and are passionate about getting the students back consistently in school. And so we want to review the past year's attendance with the family, share information about the importance of attendance, identify resources or support for achieving better attendance. And what happens when Dale Olson and Victor Canino, do family visits, and they do that throughout the year, is sometimes they're working with Lisa Kincaid now, is they're then bringing resources from the social workers and different agencies to those families, and that'll be part of the assessment we'll do this summer. We also want to understand the family perspective on the chronic absenteeism, because I think, Josh alluded to some of the trends and patterns we're seeing, but it's very, very complicated, and every time we work with a family, we learn a lot, and there's generally a number of issues uncovered. And the last thing we want to do is outline the consequences of continued poor attendance. And I think this is a good way of, number one, just having some good touches out in the community with folks who work for the school system. But two, I think, we're gonna debrief and, do some pre-gaming before each session. And I think we're gonna learn a lot just from this process. And it's coming out of the pandemic, and Josh said this, and it's absolutely true. This is a nationwide crisis, the attendance issue. And I think if we had these two guys prior to the pandemic, I think, with the scope of the work, it would have been much more manageable. I think the scope of the work is beyond just two individuals, and I think they're doing a great job. But I think we're just providing more support, and we're doing that in a number of ways. Josh mentioned the grant program. There's different teams that are working with, families in a lot of different ways to provide support. And sometimes it's just basic access to food, shelter, and healthcare that are getting in the way. And sometimes it's just not knowing what resources are out there or what can be done. And so this is going to be hopefully a learning experience for us, hopefully a learning experience for the families and the students. And, I know it will lead to some better attendance, but again, I'm not putting this out there and saying this is going to solve the attendance, the chronic attendance issues that kind of started during the pandemic and have continued on. But there's going to be a lot of different things we're going to do and we're going to try that are going to, I think to put it on Dale and Victor is probably too much. So it's a way to provide support, and it's not a criticism of their work. It's just a reality of just the scope of what's happening in Milford, post-pandemic. So just an update on kind of one of the things we're doing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I mean you pretty much said it, a couple times, and how unfair it is to just hand Dale and Victor this.
Go get them, boys.
Problem, right? A little pat on the back. Good luck. Do we need to, or are we leaning towards potentially bringing in a third here and or adding one in middle school as well?
Possibly. I think, this year it's too new. I think we're seeing, like, when they engage with families, and they're engaging consistently, we see a positive result. What I don't want to do is hire a bunch of attendance supervisors, and then 3 or 4 years from now, the issue starts to fade away, and then we, don't need those folks anymore.
Sure.
So I want to kind of be cognizant of that. But maybe we have some part-time people that provide support. That could be maybe the next step. So unsure right now.
Yeah.
I think we're still we finally got 1 year's worth of data,
right,
and we haven't quite gone through it completely, but we did some preliminary analysis, and Josh was instrumental in that. And the results of their direct engagements were profound, in terms of improvement.
And I think we still heard about it too last week with even the reading comments we heard from the K-2 school. I don't know that we've still seen the full impact of the pandemic. It still seems like pieces are coming out in different ways, so it may take a little longer.
It's social, it's attendance, it's academic.
Yeah.
Just related to Matt's comment, I think when we start talking about the budget next year, especially if we are thinking this is something worthwhile that we want to enhance, but just like what you're saying, maybe down the road we're not going to need 3 attendance officers, I would just encourage us to consider maybe hiring a social worker who specifically is part of that program, because I feel like we could always use an extra social worker. And so if they started off being part of the attendance program, helping make those connections with families, just having a different lens than an attendance officer, it just might be something to think about when we talk about the budget.
I think that's a reasonable responsibility and suggestion, because I think it's something that I think we could fold that individual back into our general program. And I can tell you they'd be very busy.
It's a great idea.
Megan.
Just a couple questions, Kevin. Is the thought the latter half of the summer in terms of to get to proximity to the start of the year?
There's that, and our translators tend to take the first part of July off.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
From a practical perspective.
Yeah.
So we're trying to kind of balance some of that stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think there is the proximity of the school year. I think it'll maybe have a little more of an impact.
Right. Recency bias. Yeah. Is the thought to only target high school students?
No, we're actually
Okay.
not going to target high school students at all.
Oh, interesting.
Because
Okay.
the grant program that Josh is talking about is going to more focus on the high school students. We're going to focus on basically like 1 through 8.
Sorry, his initiative sounded quite similar. So do we have 2 initiatives?
We do. One,
Okay,
one is
thank
one.
you.
Yeah. So, and I would say, you know, Josh and the high school team are going to participate in both
Okay. That's
because I think, you know, we're going to focus the high school and the middle school folks on the middle school
Got it.
population.
Okay.
Because it's who you have and who you're going to be working with.
Mm-hmm. Any sense, Kevin, in terms of the target? So obviously we have a number of chronically absent students. Is the goal to reach all of them? Is the goal to reach 50%
No,
of them?
I think we're
Sort
going to
of
be somewhere between 100 and 200.
students.
Yeah.
Families.
Well, that's where it's tricky because some families have multiple
Multiple.
students that
Understood.
are chronically
Yep.
absent. So I think, you know, 125 is a number we bantered about
Okay.
that we're going to try to hit.
Uh-huh.
But I think, you know, this is the first time we're doing it, so I don't have a sense of,
Just curious.
like, we're
how long it takes,
anticipating,
right.
like, we're going out for 5 hours.
Mhm.
We're anticipating 1 family visit per hour.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Understood.
you know, everybody will have 7 to 8 because I'm sure some people won't be home.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Um,
And then, can you remind me, Kevin, were the attendance supervisors 12-month positions?
They are.
They are 12-month
And
positions.
they'll be participating in these as well as additional visits throughout the summer.
Okay. I guess my other question was just around like data and tracking success. So is that a component of this to actually
It is.
compare if
We're tracking every different type of intervention we do
Okay.
and what the results are from, you know, if we bring a family to court on a CRA,
Mm-hmm.
to if we make a visit, if we have a meeting in school, if we send a series of correspondences, we're looking at all that
Okay.
to
I
see
think
where the effectiveness is.
for me personally, if we're talking about continuing expanding this, like the data piece is going to be really important to kind
Yeah.
of show. So just
So,
the work
yeah,
we're
at this
capturing.
point, we have 1 year of
100%. No,
reasonable
understood.
data. I don't think we're gonna be able to make any true, I think what we are seeing, which I can say definitively, is when there's an engagement,
Mhm.
we do see at least short-term improvement,
Mhm.
and in many cases, longer-term
Okay.
improvement. But, I think you have to look at it over a couple of years
For
to
sure.
really, you know, get a sense
Yeah.
of it.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's in the national literature too, and when, the personal touch is the critical piece, and the building of the relationship.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. Any other questions on the attendance piece? Not seeing, so, all right.
All right, perfect. At your seat is as 2 potential timelines for the superintendent evaluation. My recommendation, I'll give you a second just to kind of read through them, but my recommendation is to possibly look at option 1. And it's a little bit broader of a time horizon, but I think it's also probably more realistic. I think option 2, we could try to get everything done by the meeting on the 27th. But I worry that it's gonna be too tight. I know people are away for the summer too, you know, at different times. So I'd be happy to kind of like try to say, do we schedule a special meeting in August and just focus on that? Or do we wait till the September 7th meeting and just kind of go with that meeting?
Mhm.
I think that's, based on past experience, that option 1's probably more realistic. I think, you know, the initial thing is to be more ambitious and go with option 2 and try to get it in. And my experience has been it just doesn't work out that way. And I would also provide the committee with a template as well as my, you know, I think you've seen the initial evidence, which is probably like 80 to 85% of what I'm going to present. And I'd provide the full evidence in a template, and we just agree to a timeline. And so I'd just open it up to the committee to kind of have a conversation, ask questions, at the pleasure of the chair.
Mhm. Thank you. Absolutely. Any questions as I'm still reading through anyways?
No questions.
Yeah.
I'll just throw a comment out while you're reading through that. For those who aren't aware, I did spend some time, probably 2 months ago, taking what we agreed upon for
Indicators?
pieces. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever the word. I don't know why my brain's not working. I molded that into an easier to submit for committee members form that takes all the pieces that we're not talking about, and I'll send it to you too to check
Okay,
it out.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
Megan tested it with me. Essentially, the goal is it shortens it up for us to fill out and to review, and it also dumps everything into one place for whether it's the chair or if I decide to volunteer to help with that or not, I don't know. To have a one stop compilation of all the information that should make this summarizing a little bit easier too. So just to kind of clean it up, because I personally can't stand that document from Desiccant. It's my own internal struggle, but it will land in that document, I think, officially. But this is just kind of a middle piece, I would imagine.
You may have expressed your frustration last year.
Yeah, I've only done it a couple times, yeah. But as far as the options, I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
Neither one matters to me. Whatever's better for you.
Option one, I like.
Yeah, I guess, well, yeah. You're happy to say option one. I'm the one that gets to pull everything together, so.
That gives you more time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah. I'm looking ahead at my schedule, what I have in the other months too. So, just need to, I'm looking through my schedule and what we have planned as a committee, for meetings. Sorry, I'm bringing it up. I know we have, so 27th, and then we don't have. So right now we don't have anything planned in
scheduled
August,
for August, correct?
Right? So, what I would say then is potentially having Melissa reach out. So you're looking at that meeting on the 24th potentially.
And that's just a placeholder. I want to throw a date out there.
Yep.
But if there's another day that works better for the committee, I think that's easy to.
I guess from my standpoint, let me just kind of digest all of this and potentially get back to everybody.
I'm fine with either, honestly. So.
Yeah, exactly.
When's to be better for
Right. Yeah.
So I would just say I'm pretty much fine with either. My preference, so the only thing with option one, as long as it's okay that we're like butting up the beginning of the school year when we do this, as long as nobody has a problem with that, I think that's fine. I don't necessarily, August 24th to September 7th, if it's, I don't know, I just know for me, August 24th, that's like the week of orientation at my college, so I might not make that meeting.
Yeah.
But it's not about me, it's about the committee and what's best. I would still, though, just because we don't know everybody's schedules and how much, we might be able to do things better with Matt's new system, I would still recommend that the individual meetings be optional, even in option one, if that's okay with you, Kevin. And
I threw that out there as just something we haven't done before, and I thought it might not be a bad idea, and I forgot to mention that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my only other thought.
All right. Any other feedback? All right. I mean, obviously I'm assuming it doesn't require a vote. It's just more of a consensus of the committee. So happy to, poll out the committee when we start. Everybody can kind of input these dates into their summer schedule and see what works out. I think would be the best. And that's my hesitation right now, is I just want to be able to kind of look ahead at my schedule, and I'm assuming everybody else, because there's 7 people and 7 different schedules that go, and then obviously I always like to run things by John as the vice chair, schedule-wise too. So, but I appreciate the options on the timeline. I even got to get my head around how we did things last year and the timeline for there. I think at this point, from you, Kevin, is just having the documents from the self-evaluation and evidence, submitted to us in the school committee in that timely fashion is going to drive everything else from there. So I think that would be that's the first of the driving points, and then we can kind of work with Matt's way to consolidate and better evaluate with a better evaluating tool, right, and see how that comes online, and that may also help predict a better timeline too. So
Brendan is committed to using ChatGPT to do the evaluation, so whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
So just thinking today's, our last meeting for a while, would this be something that you and John as the chair and co-chair could ultimately make the decision about? Like, obviously considering the input of the rest of the committee, but then just so, because Kevin's going to need to know when to have his documents ready.
Right,
so
I'm going to work with Kevin on this too. So this is,
I think Melissa will help kind of just see when people are available.
Yeah. This is the first I'm seeing it too. So that's why I'm trying to think in my head of the timeline and how to navigate everything. So if the board is okay with that part of it, and like I said, I'll work with Matt from in a sense the process side of it. Sure. What he has, and I'll work with John and obviously with Kevin on the timeline, and keep everybody apprised on an as needed basis.
You have the hardest part, so.
I know. 2 years in a row. So.
Who's counting?
All right, exactly. Who's counting?
I'm banking on changing that next time.
Yeah. All right. Well, excellent. Sounds good. Any other questions on that then? No. Not seeing any. Very good. So moving on then. report from our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Human Resources.
I need to bow
Thank
early,
you, Mr.
sorry.
Chair. I have for the committee's approval this evening, 6 warrants in the amount of $1,031,942.28.
All right, looking for a motion to approve the warrant. Motion by Megan, second by Robin, all in favor, and that is unanimous, including Michael.
The committee also has a budget update for the current FY '23. I am asking the committee also this evening to balance our budget with a budget transfer request of $992,300. And you can see from the list in front of you of the particular accounts, it really was due to the transportation of $778,000 in the red for the fiscal year. We were fortunate that we had 3 teachers take the full year off due to a maternity request. In addition, we had another teacher that did not come into school at all due to a medical reason, as well as another teacher who took a half of a school year off. So that really, I don't want to say saved us, but it really did, where it brought us to a balanced budget with the other small areas that also need to be addressed, such as athletics, which was in the red by 100. And I believe that really came down to the phase of the football uniform and equipment, as well as a few other areas. Transportation is high in terms of athletic routing for transportation. Thank you. And fortunately, we had a warmer winter, and we had heat and electricity savings, which gets us to our $992,300 budget request.
Any questions?
Questions?
Yes, Megan.
Sorry, Kathy, so I think you explained the regular instruction, which made sense to me. What's the teaching support variance?
That would be that we really, knowing that we had the deficit that we had to make up, I really pushed as many of the teaching assistants. So we had a little bit of a surplus there over to the grant.
Got it.
So we have
salary
less-
was moved. It's not okay.
Correct.
That's helpful to understand. Okay. And the school psychologist, do we have a tenured person leave?
That was just someone who left that was unexpected, and it took us a while to fill that role.
Okay. So the transportation piece, I just wanted to make sure I understood you. So I heard a piece of it is athletics.
No, that's the athletics budget
Oh,
separate
sorry.
of transportation.
I'm sorry. Okay, so just maybe comment a little bit further. I mean, obviously the transportation number is large. Is it primarily out of district? Is it, what is it?
It's out of district, and I think there's, we're not combining our routes to mitigate cost.
Is not, no.
No, these
Sorry?
are the individual contractors she's referring to.
Out of, in district. Sorry, bear
It
with
could
me.
be in and out. It's
vans.
both. It's special ed, the vans, but not using our vans, we are using private
So
vendors.
that's where I was trying to
Yes.
hone in on, we now own a number of vehicles that we've asked the town to support, and so how are we leveraging those vehicles in execution?
Well, we're using them and executing them,
Okay.
so this number could be much larger without them.
Okay.
So I will tell you that I did reach out to our previous transportation director, and he is willing to work with me over the summer in July, and we're gonna put together a special ed bidding document that will go out to all vendors, and we're gonna ask them to sharpen their pencils, as Mr. Morcone would say. And we're going to do a bid process, and the lowest bid will be given the routes.
Interesting. Okay, that's great. And then on the athletic piece, sorry, didn't we approve new football stuff for this coming year?
I believe that was just to continue the contract service for the equipment,
Reconditioning, yeah.
reconditioning it,
Got it.
and keeping it in
There's certain
viable
safety standards
condition.
that we have to kind of
Yes.
meet consistently.
It's a big
This
number.
is uniforms, Meg, and I guess football is the most expensive
Got it.
phase to
I want
replace
to say,
uniforms.
I thought I saw in one of the line items that athletic transportation was significantly in the red.
Yes.
$40,000.
I think
That's
it's
off
the
the
middle
cost.
school sports that we're
Yeah, so I
finding,
think-
as we went online. I don't think we took into consideration the amount of transporting we would be doing with the middle schoolers.
Got it. Thank you.
I New
Better.
Bedford, it's pretty distant.
Yeah, Matt, hold on one second. And the other component that we have to consider, as we increase our in-house supply of vans and buses, is the basically the insurance coverage that is covered by Town Hall. So it's something that Town Hall has made us aware of, that we need to consider as we move away from contracting and bring it in-house.
Can I
Feels like
speak
it has
to
to
that,
still be
though?
in net savings.
Yeah. Well, again,
Yes.
it's something to be aware of. Right.
We should
it's-
support the cost
yes,
differential, but I
yeah.
would think,
Yep.
for all.
But they really do, the town does. I don't think it was discussed that that's one of the components in our net school spending number, which is what the town can allocate as their expenses to supporting schools.
Mhm.
So there is a percent of the insurance that we are charged for those buses.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we're indirectly paying for it through our net school spending.
Right, yeah, and I think it's more like the liability side of it too. There was some questions there. So again, I'm just bringing it up that there was a discussion at Town Hall that involved different parties. That was the topic from the liability standpoint, more from the 40 passenger buses. But it just made me think about the fact that as we bring in, if we bring in another 5 caravan buses, right, we just need to consider that liability from transportation cost side. So sorry, Matt.
Yeah, I'm just back on the transportation athletics piece. Obviously, that's over $850,000 or something like that, and it's obviously a little disappointing to know the bottom line is somewhere around 446 right now, and it could be over 1.3 million if we didn't have such a deficit. I don't recall seeing one so high as last year. So beyond leveraging the generosity of Lenny donating his time or whatever, maybe not even donating, which I wouldn't blame him, but getting involved this summer, is there anything else that we have planned to try to prevent such a deficit next year?
I would like to, and the school committee approved 2 routes. One would, 2 buses. One was a 15 passenger and one is another van. We do have enough 7D drivers, so the van is not a concern to me. The 15 passenger, I do believe I would have to get a yellow bus driver to support that. But we do have particular schools that we have, I would say over 8 students that we could put all on the 115 passenger. So that would really significantly have a great impact on our budget. But we can't have 4 vendors for, in one student on each one of those contract service. It's just budget breaking.
Sure.
Must be an administrative nightmare also, I would think.
Yes, it really is. Because there's not many contracted vendors out there that you can, really reach out to, that it's a limited.
Because nobody has drivers.
Yeah, it's
Right on to
limited right now, so, and that's where they have us, they're charging more than they ever have as well.
Mhm.
So that's why it's to our benefit if we
Ken,
could get something
quick question,
going.
circuit breaker money, does that offset
Out of district tuition,
just tuition?
There's transportation circuit breaker now too as well.
yes,
Yeah.
but that goes directly to the town general fund.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that clarification. Any other questions on the budget transfer? Not seeing any, so looking for a motion to approve the budget transfer that I just lost the amount. 'Cause it-
992,300.
Thank you. So motion by Matt, second by Robin, all in favor, and that is unanimous. Great.
The committee also has a request from the technology department to declare a number of technology devices as surplus, as it's all retired and taken offline. And a vote is required.
And so like, all this, does it go anywhere? Do we donate it? Does it get scrapped to a particular vendor that we utilize?
We utilize a vendor that swipes it, all the hard drives,
Yeah.
and cleans it out and takes it off-site for us.
Okay.
Fun fact on the Chromebooks, the team upstairs takes these ones that are bad and
Right.
pulls all of the highly smashed and damaged pieces off of the ones that are savable, and there is literally a shelf of monitors and keyboards upstairs.
Right. Yeah.
That has, I'm sure, saved us time and money over
Yeah, as far
years
as, yeah,
replacing things. So
cannibalizing. Yeah.
there's probably going to be 300 extra monitors coming out of this too, which is
Yeah.
a good thing. So
So that's part. Yeah. So they would go through of these Chromebooks, 370 Chromebooks. They will take away the good
Yeah.
components.
They're
So-
keeping the
yeah,
usable parts.
Yes.
keeping it.
they'll
Yep.
strip the good
Yeah.
stuff and then recycle
Good.
the rest. Yeah.
Excellent. Good to know. So, all right. Any other questions on the surplus? All right. So looking for a motion to basically approve the technology equipment and declare it as surplus. Motion by Megan, second by Robin. All in favor, and that is unanimous.
In addition, we have Dr. Masterson, who is looking to attend the National Association for Education of Young Children Annual Conference in Nashville, Tennessee. And that conference is from November 14th to the 19th. And she is looking for your support so that she could buy her plane tickets before she goes on vacation. So with that, a vote is required.
And she attends this annually.
Okay. Excellent. Any questions or comments on
Just
that?
a quick
Yes,
question.
Robin?
How much do we typically give for professional development?
Do you know the answer to that, Kathy?
Yes, it's in each individual administrator's contract, and
Okay.
it's been at the same number since I've been here, which is $1,500 a year.
Okay.
Mhm. And this comes from school choice budget?
This comes from the administrative salary budget.
Mystery salary.
No, I apologize. It comes from the travel line in our professional development
Okay.
budget.
All right. All right. Megan?
Motion to approve?
All right, so motion by Megan, second by Matt, all in favor, and that is unanimous.
And there was a list for the committee's review on the latest appointments and hires from our previous meeting.
Excellent, thank you. And
Chris,
there
can
are
I just ask a
no
question?
gifts. Yes, of course.
How many open positions, Kathy? About
Oh,
ish?
Kevin,
Well,
you just
actually,
took a
yeah,
poll.
no, I've been checking with the principals every week. I can probably send something out next week.
It'd be great to
because
know.
We're actually doing really well.
That's great.
Um,
Everything's been posted. That's approved.
Yeah, and there's still some movement that happens
Sure.
all throughout, like the
Mhm.
late spring
Yep.
or into the summer. But I would say I've probably had like 12 meetings in the last 3 days with new hires.
Oh, wow.
So like they're starting to really
Awesome.
come in.
That's great.
But we're doing pretty well. I would say.
I'd appreciate an update. Just
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
have a
yeah.
chance. That's
I
great.
can provide something for you
Thanks.
guys next week. So I'll probably pull the principals again to see where they are in the process.
That's great. Thank you,
Yep.
Chris.
Yeah, no problem, thank you for the question. All right, any other questions from the report from our assistant superintendent? Not seeing any, so moving on to subcommittee updates. We already had our policy kind of update. Well, I guess if there's any more, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll just say policy met tonight before this meeting, and we talked about the wellness policy, which was presented to you as a first reading, and we also did start to review the safety, security, and emergency planning policy as well.
And I recommended for the, God, I'm just drew a blank on it, the fundraising.
Fundraising.
Fundraising. I'm gonna have members come in to speak to the whole committee. That way, it's just easier, because I know there's lots of questions. There's only 3 of us that are on subcommittee, so I figured that'll be the easier way to address those questions, and it'll probably be sometime in September. So, alright. Any other subcommittee updates? Not seeing any. So future agenda items. Yes.
Just as a reminder, again, we need to review the therapy animals policy
yeah.
again.
Thank you for the reminder. Yeah. Any other future agenda?
In July, Chris, and we may
Yeah.
get this as part of the bid, Kathy, so that's fine. Can we just get timelines for both the Brookside project and the turf project?
And even that, is that something that timelines we can just send out kind of via email, just to keep
Oh,
us
sure.
apprised of what's going on too? That
Great.
obviously it's not gonna, by the time we get to it,
It's
it'll
fine,
be a little
just
bit
wanna have
later in
the
summer, but
information.
yeah, no, I think it's a good way of keeping
But
track of
our
it.
modulars are coming, right, Kath?
Yeah,
Yes, they called, they want to make delivery, and they were inquiring about the last day of school, so they can stage them in the parking lot and have them ready to go when they're,
Can't wait for the tour.
Are the permits going to beat the modulars or the other way around?
I know, I don't know, Matt.
right, enough of you with that.
I know. He comes in late, he's causing trouble.
That's what it is.
Craig told me
That's what it is.
Oh.
Yep. You're welcome. So, all right. Any other? So I got therapy dogs, and then the timelines on the various summer projects that we have going on. Anything else? Not seeing anything, so then we will move on to adjournment. So, motion by Megan, second by Robin, all in favor, and that is unanimous. Thank you very much, and good night to everyone.